Hi, I'm Alex from Roman EdTech, and today I'm going to show you how to use TinkerCAD and the simulator within it, as well as design something for some random dice rolling. So, for our dice tower, which is what we're creating, we are going to be needing a few primitives tools. I've just grabbed 4 of these basic box blocks, as well as 1 wedge. These things will make sense when we start putting them together, so let's take a look and see how we can do this. Now, there are, of course, alternative ways that you can create your own dice towers and customize them to yourself, but if you're following along with me, here's how I make a simple dice tower. First, I'm going to be utilizing one of the blocks, and I'm going to put it in the back of the workspace here, just so that when we do the adjustments, we're going to be able to make sure we're not interfering with any of the other blocks. Now, the height of my tower, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, is going to be 150 millimeters. All right. Now, I'm going to make the width and length here 50 and 50 millimeters. So in order to create the hole within this tower, I'm going to need to create a hole object. So I convert it from a solid object into a hole object. And I'm going to change the dimensions here to 44 by 44 length and width. And I'm going to keep the height 150 millimeters. Now what's really cool is I'm going to be able to take both objects by clicking and dragging, or clicking and holding shift. If you're using an iPad, you just touch each object individually, and then you'll see it says 2 shapes. You'll then go ahead and use the align tool. On the keyboard, you can just hit the letter L, that's a shortcut, and we are going to center align in both the X and the Y plane. The Z is already fully aligned, as they're both the same height, so we won't need to do anything. We'll then group this object. When we group this object, that hole will now eliminate the space inside the solid object, and when we look directly over top, we see that we have a tower that is just straight through. We see the bottom of the work plane. And the exit hole needs to be converted into a hole, but we should be a little bit smaller than the width of the inner diameter, which is 44. So let's change that to 35. The wall thickness, since we made it 44, and there's 2 walls, that makes each wall 3 millimeters thick. And the height, we're going to actually make 35 so that we have this nice little square. Now let me show you how to use the align tool another way. I want to align this hole with the center of the tower as well as one of the faces. So when I use the align tool, if I were to click the center align tool, it'll line the 2 up. However, a cool trick is that if I hold shift and click the tower itself, I can now align the hole to not only the center, but I can also align it to the front face that I want to remove out. And in doing this, since both objects are selected again, I will group them, and I've now created this hole within the tower. Next, we'll want to build an exit ramp for our dice or objects to fall out of so that it bounces clearly out. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. I can use a wedge, or I can manipulate a box and turn it into a ramp. So if I were to take a box and manipulate it into a ramp, I'm only going to need it to be 4 millimeters thick, and we're going to match the same width of 50 millimeters, and we can keep it at 20 long. For the wedge, we can do almost the same thing, except it's a little bit more simplified. We're going to be doing 50 millimeters wide, and we're going to be doing it 20 long is okay, but the height is actually going to come down. We're going to make this into 10 millimeters tall. So now we've created this little ramp that at the bottom it's going to hit, and we will use our fancy align tool again. This time we're going to align for the tower, clicking shift and holding the tower, center align, and now we're going to focus on the back wall here so that we see that there's a wedge at the back, and when the dice falls in, it's going to go in. Now we're not going to leave this ramp alone. We're also going to use this again. We're now going to take the ramp, I'll raise it up. We're going to go ahead, align, center align, but this time we're going to match it to the front wall, and we'll now need to rotate the angle to be around 45 degrees to 30 degrees. Let's use around 30 degrees. And this ramp is going to be on the inside of the tower, so that when I group all the objects together, it's going to fall into the tower and it will hit the ramp. Now, in order for us to see this, we'll turn on transparency, and we'll see that we have kind of these two ramp things. So it's going to drop in. It might hit the one ramp. If it's not long enough, we can adjust later. So now let's bring in a 20-sided dice. Okay, and just for the sample, we're seeing that this is just a little too big, so we need to bring this down, holding shift, scaling down. This is a good size for this. It's above the tower. When we hit the simulator, it'll start thinking and rendering, and when it's ready, it will kind of pulsate like it just did there, and then we hit play in the lower left of the window, and we see it drop down. If it doesn't react how we want, like I didn't really like how that reacted there. It seemed like it just dropped through, didn't even hit the one wall. That's again a part of the simulation, but there could be a design flaw in the tower here. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this off camera, and we'll get to the final simulator. Okay, so let's test our simulator. What I did was I just elongated the ramp a little bit here. Not too much, just enough to make sure that when it falls, it hits. But do be careful that when you do extend the ramp, if you extend the ramp here, that it does not too long so that your dice will get stuck in there. You'll see this in the simulator actually. So let's test to see if our simulator, and we just dropped 2 dice in there with both coming in with different numbers. You know, it's really cool, really good way to test our products before we actually do there. And if we actually wanted to kick out a little more, what we can do is we can adjust this bottom ramp. You're gonna ungroup a couple times just to make sure you can do step backwards. Sometimes it's nice to just do duplicates while you're doing the progress, and then when you have your final happy object, you can just go ahead and delete it. So that was building a dice tower on TinkerCAD and utilizing the simulator built into the same program.